And then next, we are getting ready to move on to our panel. We have such great panelists. Terry, I'm going to invite you to grab a seat in one of those nice comfy chairs behind you. And then I'm going to call up Angie Alexander, who I believe is there in person, who will join you up on stage in Calgary. And so we already met Terry. Let me introduce Angie. Angie's a leadership, a team effectiveness consultant, and a mental fitness coach. She has over 20 years in the oil and gas engineering industry, and she uses her strong people skills to make more productive individuals. And one of her key whys is making people feel safe and challenging them to grow. So Angie, welcome to our panel. Next, I'm going to introduce Carey Davidson. Carey, a friend of mine. I met her on Clubhouse. We've connected on online as well. She's a world-renowned speaker. She's really passionate in terms of being an educator who's taught at companies like Microsoft, with Tony Robbins, at various Ivy League universities. Her book, The 5 Archetypes, is Discover Your True Nature and Transform Your Life and Relationships. Is an interesting read, and it really helps uncover what truly motivates people and their perpetual growth. So you can learn about your archetypes, get her book. Felipe Cofino, one of our advisory board members, he is not your traditional HR leader, that's for sure. He brings such great energy, and he's going to be great for this panel, that's for sure. He has a lot of experience as a VP in human resources and organizational development, and has a really strong background of over 25 years in the field. And our last panelist, Rebecca Brown Adelman. She's our theater and improv professional. So yes and person, right? She's going to bring the yes and to this panel. She's the founder of the Interactive Theater Project, which she has created, directed, wrote, and facilitated hundreds of interactive theater performances around topics such as race, class, gender, and other social and community-related issues. She is also the founding partner of Affinity Arts Consulting, whose mission is to use the theater to advocate for social justice and equity. Welcome, panelists. Are we ready?
David, just one thing I just want to let people know. So in-person panel members, please look at this camera when you're speaking, okay? This is, and you can always look at the people that are here as well. And when the question's being asked, you can look there, but when you're answering the question, please look here, and you can just pass the mic around, and that'll be great. Thank you, David.
Awesome, Sumana, thanks for that. All right, let's start. We're going to start off with an easy one. I'm going to start with Carey. Why is workplace wellness important to you?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. So, you know, workplace wellness is important to me, and it has been for a really long time. My first career, I was the head of HR at Columbia College, at Columbia University, and I was such a sensitive young human, not that young anymore, but at the time, it was just really sad to me that we spent so much of our lifetime at work and most people were unhappy. And back then in the early 90s, they're just, you know, workplace wellness was not a thing. It was you show up, you get it done, you go home and you take care of yourself there. And it just didn't sit well with me. And I knew that there were ways we could improve people's lives. And I felt really passionate about contributing to that. So I've been spending, you know, most of my adult life figuring out how, and bringing really easy, actionable systems to people that, I mean, I teach it to 6-year-olds in kindergarten, and they get it like that. I teach it to heads of big international companies. So I think we suffer a lot. We have a lot of things in our lives that create suffering. Our work should not do that to us. And listening to Terry and listening to all you guys, I mean, I love that there's so much heart in this room, you know, dedicated to changing that. So yeah, that's my thing.
I saw some nodding, so I see Rebecca, I see Felipe nodding. Rebecca, workplace wellness, why is it important to you? Why are you nodding along with Carey over there?
I just appreciate what Carey is saying so much, and I think it's important for us to look at how we can create communities, how we truly can create community and capacity within the workplace, so that we can really find ways that we're working together and being collaborative in our productivity rather than in our own separate silos. So to me, it makes me think of there's a theater. When you introduced me as a theater person, there's something that we do in theater companies and in ensembles called flocking, where we have the ensemble move together in unison. And I was thinking about that before this call today, of that being such a perfect example of wellness within a team, that idea of people working and moving together with ease.
Great, love that response, and absolutely, I think this idea, I love that term. I'm gonna I want to look at that up. Flocking, like birds, I guess, right? Birds of
Yes,
flocking like birds do.
exactly. There's one thing I'll share too really quickly about geese that I learned, which apparently when geese make noise when they're flying together as a group, it's because sometimes the person in the front is alerting other geese that they need to come forward and lead because they need a break.
Interesting. I thought it was
So-
they were just telling them like, hey, poop on that car or something like that, because generally it's mine, but you
Nope.
know.
There's a real connection there.
Great. I'm gonna throw it over to you, Angie. Why is workplace wellness important to you?
Thanks. It is going to be weird to look at the camera when everyone else is in my periphery. So thank you. So I have an engineering background, not software engineering like Carey, but petroleum engineering here in Calgary. And I never really thought much about wellness, right? We grew up, you work and then you go home, and connecting workplace and wellness was not necessarily something that we did before. And at one point in my career, I fortunately have never suffered burnout. So I'm grateful for that. But I definitely hit a point in my career where I was like, I'm not really very happy. I'm successful, right? I have, I'm the data says that I'm smart, that I'm successful, but I wasn't happy and I certainly didn't feel it. So that started a journey for me around what does happiness look like and how do I bring that for myself? And then I was forced to do some more, what do I want to be when I grow up, in 2017, when I was part of the layoffs that happened here in Calgary over several years. And I found that I have always had a real desire to help people. And I really found that looking around at people and how they tick and how they work and how much happier we are when we actually are connected. I love this flocking thing because I think that actually is what would happen. I've experienced that in a team where I've seen everybody really working together and not worrying about like doing that extra effort. But then when you're doing that extra effort, you're not feeling like you're part of something bigger. So over the last few years, I have a real passion around leaders here, especially in oil and gas. It's a very command and control environment, and there's pockets of what I call sage leaders. So they're leaders that are tapped into their inner wisdom. And I found mental fitness coaching, which I realized it's a framework that I've been using probably throughout most of my career, especially after that point of like, what makes me happy? So bringing all this together and finding Samana, which I've been so grateful to meet her in person finally after meeting her on Clubhouse, and just that energy that comes from working with like-minded people. I really want to help, especially here in Calgary with our oil and gas industry. There's a lot of heaviness here right now, and I feel like I can help leaders and bringing this kind of work to that and speaking to them with my technical background. My superpower, I love that Samana used superpower, is being able to speak to technical people on a human level. I call myself an empathetic engineer. And so I can talk technical, I can talk data, but I can, I want to be able to help you actually be humans. That's it. Thank you, David. I'm done.
Oh, that's great, Angie. Thank you so much. We've heard Terry's and we've heard Felipe's why. So we're going to move along on another question. We titled this panel Organizational Resilience. I want to hear from anybody can jump in. how does this concept of organizational resilience tie into a healthy and safe workplace?
Well, mind if I pop in for?
Go for it.
So, people feel resilient and safe when they're not in fear states. And we as a human race are afraid of the unknown. So the mind will go and create a story sometimes when we don't know what the future holds. And usually we create the worst case scenario, right? Imagine waiting for test results for a health issue, vacillating between, I'm going to be okay, and oh my gosh, I don't want something bad to happen, right? So in the workplace, if we're trying to create change, and most companies, they want to grow, so they're creating change all the time. It's uncomfortable for humans. We don't deal with change well because we don't know what's going to happen. And so as far as building resilience, it's really important, I think, to help employees control what they can control. First, to know what they can control, and then learn skills for how to do it. And there's only two things we can control. We can control our relationship to our stress state and our relationship to our choice for what to say to other humans. And that's it. So when we let go of this belief that we can change, if everyone else changes, I'll be okay. If my boss changes, I'll be okay. Rather, if our wellness, activities focus on empowering the humans with those skill sets to, recognize my stress states and become resilient to them, to regulate in that moment before it becomes the really cruddy story about the future. And if we learn how to speak to kind of what Terry was saying, like give people the cues. What do I say when I feel this? What do I say? How do I create an environment where we value unifying the whole over my temporary comfort needs to be in place? Because that's when we make really cruddy choices that lead to disharmony and cultures that fall apart. So.
That's great, Carey. Felipe, we haven't heard from you yet on the panel. I'd love to hear your response to what Carey said, to the question overall, organizational resilience. How does that relate to healthy and safe workplaces?
Well, I think Carey made some great points, just to build on that, I think, again, we want our employees to be resilient, but you also want the organization to be resilient as far as how they are really addressing the culture. And I think if you just do a wellness program and set it and forget it, that's not going to work. And to Carey's point, creating that psychological safe space, if people know that you're truly invested in their mental, physical, and financial health, that transfers into a message of saying, I actually care about you as a human being. And when an employee feels like they're being cared about as a human being, not just as a worker to let them burn out and who cares what, but to actually say, hey, I want you to work hard, but I want to make sure you take care of yourself. That makes a big difference. And going back to the data, part of this, session, what it's all about, we've used a lot of data in the past to really validate what we're doing and also help ensure that what we're doing is actually moving forward. So for example, we have a platform that we use for our wellness program, and people log all their stuff in there to get their points so they can be eligible for the discount on their insurance that we provide. Well, that platform provides us reports. It lets us know how the organization is doing overall. Now, if we don't act on that information and that data, then guess what? Nothing's going to change. But we take that data and we use that not to go after individuals, but to go after the organization and let them know, hey, as a reminder, we want everyone to participate in this wonderful wellness challenge. We want everyone to get a little bit healthier. Everyone's going through a lot of busy project stuff. We have the holiday season coming up. People are a little stressed. Make sure you take the time to, out of your workday, again, not at home when they're off, but during the workday, to go meditate, to go use the gym in our basement, to go take time off away from your desk at home and do these wellness challenge exercises, whatever they may be. Because sometimes we do, the breathing ones, sometimes we do step challenges, sometimes we do challenges about different exercises. But that data allows us to know if people are actively doing it or if, it's kind of last days ago. The other side of the data that's helped us a lot is, like I mentioned earlier in my why about the success, those success stories of individuals in the company losing weight, not taking medication anymore, avoiding surgeries, that's amazing data too. And a lot of that information has also transferred over into our claims being lower. And I will say this right now, because I know there's a lot of people out there that will say, oh, that you can't predict claims going up and down. And you're right, you can't predict it, but you can impact it. And I'm living proof of it over the last 6 years, our claims have gone down every year, and our wellness engagement has increased every year. And also to validate that, this year for our employees, we have a 0% increase on our insurance benefits for premiums. No increase at all. Every year we've had some kind of increase. This year, 0. And that goes back to the data that we got from our claims showing that they've gone down every year. So that, I think, it helps build resilience with the employee and the organization.
Carey, I saw you applauding over there. Why were you applauding? Let me hear from you.
Well, it's just,
I said Terry, but Carey, go ahead.
Oh,
They sound the same. It's okay.
well, no, just really quick from my history in HR, it's always about like, well, the data doesn't show, you can't prove it's going to help us. It's not going to change the bottom line. But, hearing this, I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. So I just wanted to cheer. Thanks, Felipe.
Excellent. And I know Carey does have to log off shortly because we are running a little behind on our schedule. So thank you for that, Carey. Terry, now it's throwing it to you out in Calgary.
Okay, we were both applauding. Yeah, no, I really love the word resilient. I think because it really combines productivity and the well-being, which is a fake dichotomy in my mind. A lot of people say, "Hey, is well-being more important or is productivity more important?" I like that resilient. It kind of inherently contains both. You need to be more resilient, and so I think humans are incredibly resilient. I think we should all kind of remind ourselves of that. I mean, I have a 2-year-old, just like, seeing how he recovers it, taught me a lot. Oh, actually, we're all so resilient. But I think we do have to differentiate between like personal resilience and organization resilience. I think they're pretty different concepts. One is, I think for the key for employees for building resilience is kind of educate them more or about ownership, like they own their own well-being and life and whatever boundary they need to set to keep going, to enjoy life. So a culture that promotes that, educate people on that versus having to force them to choose productivity or well-being. I think that would probably be the most helpful for employees. Whereas I think for organizations, the key to organization resilience is leadership. Like you gotta have two leaders who are able to motivate the employees, give them a meaningful work, so that they feel they are motivated, enjoying the work they have, enjoying being productive and working on something that's meaningful. That generally obviously can make all of us create a better world for all of us, but without costing their own, without making the employees be the cost for achieving those goals. No, I think it's fascinating. I really like the word. I hope it's kind of mentioned more and more.
Hey, David, can I say one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
To Terry's point, that the employees, when you have those success stories, those testimonials about how the wellness program or the culture helped them get healthier or better is very powerful. And the other last metric I'll share is turnover. Our turnover has decreased significantly over the years, and it has to do with our culture. We have a culture where we are truly supporting our employees, and it has dropped more than our average. Our current turnover this year is at 5.8%. Our competitors are between 12 and 35%. Just to give you some data, one person turnover making $30,000 a year cost the company up to $45,000 a year, more than the salary to deal with the turnover cost. So that's a huge savings for the company when you do reduce turnover. Just wanted to share that real quick.
Great. Oh, wow, that's impressive data. Carey, I want to take a second just to recognize Carey as she bows out. I know she had another engagement. So Carey, thank you so much for being part of our panel, and everybody in the audience, check out that book and then reach out to her to find out about your archetypes. I've done it. I know mine, and it's truly fascinating.
You're wood, right, David?
I am wood. I
Yeah.
believe. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
But I did have another question before we start to wrap up the panel and closing remarks, and then open the floor to questions. I see the comments coming through, and there's some great ones coming through on the LinkedIn page. But I did have a question. I see Rebecca was raising her hand. Did you want to comment on the previous question?
I do. Is that okay?
Go for it. Of course, it's okay.
Great, thank you. I wanted to bring it up in terms of resilience around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging efforts at companies as well. And that I think My sense is that if companies can make time for teams to work together and practice what it means to practice what it means and have thoughtful dialogues around diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging without shame and blame, I think that is a really significant and important I just think that is very important and significant aspect to growth within a company. And I think that what we have a tendency to do is have that be an afterthought. We want people to act and treat each other well, but we don't give people the opportunity to practice what that means. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you, Rebecca, and my good friend and former co-host on my podcast, Mr. Jared Adelman, also a member of the advisory board. I don't know if he's still online watching this event, but we've had that conversation many times about initiatives in companies are fleeting and they come and they go. And we don't like that word initiative. What we want to see is organizations build this concept of wellness, DEIB, et cetera, into their DNA. Make it part of your soul. Don't just do it so you can check off a box and that you've hired X amount of people. So we talk about it all the time. So Jared, pipe up if you're still watching, if you're still on, because I know you'll have to talk about that stuff for sure. So one last question, and then some closing remarks, and then I want to start bringing up some comments, questions from the audience. So I was thinking about it when I was putting this together. So in your point of view, organizational resilience, is this something that's proactive, or does it tend to be, or will it always be reactive, right? So can they build the resilience ahead of time, or is it something that is only that you react to once you start to see burnout increasing and wellness starting to suffer in companies? I'm throwing it out to anybody on the panel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say that as far as I think it definitely can be proactive. It has to be proactive. I think everyone's traditionally been reactive in the past, and I think that's fine. That's part of human nature sometimes. But now that we are aware of it, why wouldn't we be proactive? And the benefits to the health, financially, everything, it's a win-win for everyone. So in my mind, if you're proactive, you're going to make a lot more of an impact, and potentially save keeping those employees there and keeping them happy and part of the culture, versus driving them out because they're burning out or you didn't react quick enough.
Okay.
Can I go?
Go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love actually some of the threads that are coming through right around leadership. And I love what Terry said about, the individuals were responsible for ourselves, and leaders can be responsible for the overall resilience. And then this idea of proactive. When you asked the question, David, I was like, isn't that an obvious answer? Is everyone else going like, shouldn't it be proactive? The work I do is around mental fitness, and I think of it like physical fitness. So we can be prepared. If we're mentally fit, we're taking care of our mental health before it becomes a problem. If you're physically fit, you're taking care of your physical health. And so I think if we as leaders start with ourselves and work on ourselves, it ties into the overall organizational wellness. You can't stand up there as a leader and not be mentally fit. And for those that haven't heard that term, maybe it's about being able to face all the things that are coming at us in a more positive way than a negative way. So it was like, I think it was Carey was saying, we all go to the negative place when something happens. We all assume the worst when we're making up those stories. The more mentally fit we are, the more able we are to see the positive, look for the positive, find the positive. And so leaders doing that, it has to start with the leaders. Otherwise, their teams, you can tell your teams to be more positive, but if you're not more positive yourself, it's not going to happen. So I love all this, tying it all back together around organizational resilience comes from leadership. I think I totally agree. Hadn't heard it before. So I'm done for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Angie. Terry, any words on the proactive? I mean, obviously you have your app. That's something that could certainly be built in from a proactive point of view.
Yeah, I'm totally agree. I think proactive is definitely the future. I think as an engineer, I was thinking about the how. So I think we're sort of as a society, we're sort of in this reactive state. A lot of the leaders didn't know that it could be so bad, right? I definitely didn't know. So a lot of the responses is reactive. So so my question is like, how do we go from being reactive to reality to where we want to be, which is proactive? What does it take? And yeah, I think this is kind of exactly why the collective needs to exist, is to train the more leaders who maybe have kind of felt that, and then not will then go on and work for organizations who oversee the better culture to fundamentally prevent setting the wrong expectations for the employees, to push them up, over the edge. And that's how we can become proactive. I think it will take some time, and that's why we're all here.
Absolutely. That's what this group's all about, right? Is putting that in place. Rebecca, last word on proactive, reactive, and then we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to bring some questions, comments. We have our
Sure.
virtual moderator keeping an eye on those.
Great. Yeah, what came up for me is just the idea of impact. If you're being reactive, then you're dealing with and putting all your time and resources and energy into the impact that's already been made in the company, rather than if you're proactive, making a positive impact, as Felipe had mentioned earlier. So that's what was coming up for me as I was listening.
Great. Thank you guys so much. We are running short on time because we have more great panelists to come, another great keynote speaker. So, the scrolling on the LinkedIn has been amazing. There's been so many great comments. I hope people have been following along there. And I hope I'm pronouncing, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. I'm just going to read it right here. Rao Kolusu says, inner resilience is not a concept and a statement of our innate capacities and innate latent capacities that can help deal with life's challenges. So again, right, just looking at how do we, how are we just inner resilience versus, organizational resilience that's built in there. I'm just trying to get through some of these quickly. We talk about, positive psychology came up in the conversation, and so there's so many great comments there. Please scroll through. Unfortunately, time is running short on those. So I just want to take a minute to thank everybody who's in the audience there. The numbers keep going up. It's great to see so many people joining in on the conversation, and to our panelists, Carey, Felipe, Rebecca, Angie, and Terry, out in person in Calgary.